Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Om Shanti Shanti Shantyam Namaste. Page 207, verse 70 to 77, that Treya was explaining the difference among the yanis. And they are all yanis, but they have different apparent natures or secondary natures as Jivatmas. So it all depends on their culture and all depends on their vasanas, dispositions. Yeah? We have seen that. And then we saw that some can be even angry and irritable, but that does not affect one's yana. And then the Taittiriya has explained with some examples. And then we had that passage. Now I'm looking at this again. That's what's strange. He was talking about yanis, and then he brings about Bhagava Sukra, the well-known preceptor of Asuras, who incessantly fights against the gods. So he was giving examples of yanis, and then this guy Bhagava or whatever, how can he fight against Dharma, against the gods, if he's a yani? That is what I still have trouble to digest, because how can a yani, as he was giving different yanis with different temperaments, a yani can come to the extreme of confusing Dharma with Dharma to the point of fighting against Dharma, for example. Can a yani still have that kind of tendency or confusion? Is that possible? Right? So he was supporting the enemies to fight against the gods and I know they are powerful entities, they are seen as gods, but we are talking about yanis. We are talking about liberated souls, right? Okay. So we went through this long story. I said verse 78. Is that what I said? Yeah. And then verse 78, there are so many other yanis with different individual characteristics, such as Chyavana and Visvamitra and a few others. The secret is this. Chyavana, a king once went in with the royal family and returned for a pleasure trip into a forest, which was famous as the habitation of a remarkable sage, Chyavana by name. The young prince was playing with her companion. Did we look into this story last time? She came across what looked like an hill. This is a very nice, beautiful story. She saw an anthill. Anthill is something that sometimes certain types of ants build, which can be very rocky and solid. We have some around here. So she came across with something like that, and she, playing as a child, she put a spike into one of the holes, and then the blood came out. She was surprised and took fright and returned to the elder members of the family, but did not disclose what happened. How come the blood came from that? So when they had all returned home, the king and many others fell ill. They suspect some involuntary evil had been perpetrated on Chyavana. When an envoy arrived into the forest praying for his blessings, the sage was found hurt in the eyes, and he sent word to the king as follows. So, your daughter was playing in the forest, and she stick something on my eyes. I was therefore in samadhi, deep samadhi, for so long that the ants have grown, that thing around me. It grew over me while I was in deep samadhi. I'm now old and helpless, and I don't have my eye anymore. Send me the mischief girl here to make amends, and she's going to become my helpmate. So the child has to go there to take care of the older sage. When the envoy communicated the message to the king, he spoke to the princess, who readily accepted to the wishes of the saint. So she lived in the forest with her aged consort and carefully attend to his comfort. So this story, it's so amazing to see that people can, at least according to the stories of those times, Dharma was so important that the father says, you have to go now, and you're going to have to dedicate your life to the old sage, and the girl said, okay, so be it, because, my father tells me, and furthermore, it is, I need to make some amendments here, So, and she was there living just like a servant. And then she was going to pick up water and working hard. One day, the twin gods known as Asvin came there, and admiring her loyalty to the old husband. So the guy was already a husband. The sage was already a husband, very old. And then this god says, oh my God, this girl, she did accept her dharma to such an extent, and we need to give credit to her and admire her for her loyalty to Dharma and to her aged husband. And then they present themselves to her and told her, you know what, you're such a good person. We offer to rejuvenate your old ancient husband. And then she took her husband to the spring where those gods appeared, and waited the miracle. And then they asked the saint to dive into water, the old man. They too dived simultaneously. The two gods and the sage entered in the water simultaneously. All three emerged looking young and exactly like one another. So now the girl had three young creatures, And the girl was asked, now you have to pick up one among the three of us, which should be your husband. She had to pray to God to enable her to identify her husband. The saint promised in return to include the twin benefactors among the gods eligible for sacrificial propitiation. Okay, so the saint, he was, a great yogi or with certain powers. She said, okay, you two twin gods, so you're gonna get something out of it. So happy that you have made my body young again, So he invited his father-in-law to arrange for the sacrifice and called the names of the twin gods. And then Indra, the chief of all gods, was angered by this and threatened to spoil the party. The sacrifice of innovations of the king contemplated by Chyavana were introduced. Chyavana easily incapacitated Indra by virtue of his penance and kept his promise to his benefactor. Okay, there was a little struggle there because Indra was jealous and then Chyavana had to intervene as well. In the meantime, Indra apologized and was pardoned and restored to his former state. So there is a note here. Yagnyavalkya is the sage of the sage mentioned in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Visvamitra is too well known to be described, no need. He he was the granduncle of Parasurama. Okay, doesn't matter. One of the three typical vasanas. So that's over. So it's a nice story. It describes these esoteric, mystical powers of cities and rishis or whatnot, and gods, and we take that somehow. I don't take it completely literally, but it points. It's always have a teaching behind it, you know. And the teaching to me in this story is, you know, if you follow Dharma, you know, Ishvara is going to take care of you and provide you with a certain punya. Yeah? And she got a younger husband now, a sage with great wisdom. So now she had the best possible association, not only a sage that she served for her entire life, but also a wise husband. No? So of the three typical vasanas mentioned before, the ones, what are the three vasanas? The first one is absolutely no shraddha. How you say ashraddha? Ashraddha, I think they say. No shraddha, no trust, no confidence in the scriptures. They don't none of this, you know, is true, and I don't believe, and I'm not interested. The second one is the third one that's said to be the worst possible is Rajoguna, is action all the time, and the second one is desires. And I think the third one was meant to be the worst of all of them, which is somebody who is all the time on the go, 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 go. Is that correctly? So we have three typical vasanas mentioned. Now, the one of action is the most potent, and it seems to be the most dense ignorance, Rajoguna. Those are the best who are free from all of the three vasanas, categories of vasanas, and particularly from the least trace of that of go, 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 I need to be doing something. If free from the fault of mistrust of the teachings and of the guru, and if it's free from the desire, from the vasana due to desire, one thinks, you know, to complete myself or to find happiness, which is not a very serious obstruction to self-realization. So here again, he says the desire is not so bad, you know. So you have desire, it's at least you can include the desire for self-knowledge, but you have the energy to process your desires, and that will purify a desiring mind, to turn it into a contemplating mind. So the desire is not such a big, it's not a very serious obstruction, and it's easily destroyed by the practice of contemplation and study of the scriptures and so on. This passion need not be very marked in this case. What is the meaning of this sentence? This passion need not be very marked in this case. The case of somebody who has a lot of desire in vasanas, but it can be dealt with by the practice of meditation, contemplation, studies. This passion need not be very marked in this case. What do you think? or so let's go back. If one is over with the mistrust on the teachings, and then the vasana due to desire being the second one, which is not a big deal, it's not a huge obstruction. It can be destroyed by the practice of nididhyasana or study of the scriptures. Dispassion need not be very marked in this case. So maybe it's saying like you don't need to be very much concerned about developing dispassion because the nididhyasana is going to take care. But the person who is all the time on the go maybe needs to work on dispassion. That's maybe what it's saying. Dispassion need not be very, it's not a big thing now to be developed in this case. Such people need not repeatedly engage in the study of scriptures or the receiving of the instructions from the guru, but straight away pass into nididhyasana until it finds samadhi, the consumption of the head. They live evermore as Jivanmukti. This part is, I found it a little bit confusing. Anything from you? 2, 3, 4?
Perhaps only if they have desires that are resolved by discrimination and discrimination, then dispassion doesn't have to be sought after as much. I think it points to what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, but then he says such people need not repeatedly engage in the study of the scriptures. So which one of the three vasana-oriented people he refers here? So I think it's the middle one, because the first one has no trust in the scriptures. The second one trusts the scripture, but it has desires. And then the third one is a lost case because it's a person who is too busy to even come into contemplation of the scripture teachings. Such a people, the middle one, the one there which is dealing with desires, need not repeatedly engage in study of scriptures or the receiving of instructions from the guru, but they go into meditation, nididhyasana, until they reach samadhi. Maybe that's what it means to say. They live everywhere as Jivanmuktas. Sages with subtle and clear intellect have not considered it worthwhile to eradicate their desire by forcing other thoughts to take their place, because desires do not obstruct realization. So this is an important point. Sages with a good mind, a good intellect, they don't consider it worthwhile to eradicate those desiring thoughts. How you eradicate desiring thoughts? Either by producing a mind which is a no mind, all the time in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or you have to deal with the mind you have. And then you have to eradicate the desiring thoughts. And here there is a suggestion that the way to do that is by replacing with different thoughts, as we know. I need this and this and that. I need nothing, So I am small and limited and inadequate and so on. And then I am Brahman. I am free, limitless consciousness. So. But here the thoughts that would be considered impurity are the desiring thoughts. And the Yanni will say, no, it doesn't matter. I don't bother with desires, they don't affect me. They come up and they fade away, they disappear, But if they move the Yanni, somehow, and then it is abiding desire. And then one would need to look at it, find a way to minimize or neutralize those thoughts to the point that I'm the master of my desiring thoughts, but I'm not a slave of my desiring thoughts. And here it says, desires do not obstruct realization. So therefore, the sage is unconcerned about their desires. So if the sage has got jnana, the jnana is the knowledge that's not subject to forgetfulness. So the jnana is there. I am free, limitless consciousness. This is my true nature, identity. And somehow I'm not yet completely sold in the idea that I'm full, whole, and complete. Therefore, I don't need to desire anything. Why? Because desires are still coming and they are still impacting my mind, and then I'm still doing things based on those desires. So it's all very controversial. So if I have desires, but I am jnani, say, oh no, I'm already jnani, so these desires are not going to cancel my self-realization. But desires do obstruct self-realization before the tzika becomes a jnani, the one with hard and fast understanding, knowledge in regards to his true nature. So desires are the problem. I mean, again and again, we see in all texts saying desire is the enemy. Because a desire is a declaration that I'm not satisfied, I'm not complete, I'm not full. I need this and this and that to be happy. I don't find happiness within myself, but in the game of life of gaining my objects of desires, that adds up to true desire. So all these misconceptions are still there, giving room to desire. So therefore, desire is going to be a huge obstruction before realization. After realization, these desires, they fade. They must fade, and many of our scriptures point to the fact that they fade gradually but surely. So although those desires, they are not going to cancel, but they obstruct self-realization, but they don't cancel a mind which is self-realized with a clear intellect. But the clear intellect is not absolutely certain clear if it has to deal with desires again and again, to my take. Because a clear intellect has neutralized those desires in the causal body already, in a sense, through constant discrimination.
So these are the desires that come from that feeling of incompleteness. But say you're a jnani, and like Chinmayananda, did he have desires for ashrams, for seva, and all this stuff? So those just are, those are sadhanas, not, I mean, those are goals, not desires from weakness, right?
Yeah, so we would have to go into this, the understanding of the nature of desire. So like Lord Krishna says, so I am the desire not in violation of Dharma, I am the desire in support of Dharma. So this is one thing. So the desire, what is a okay desire? A jnani desire is a desire which is not binding, and it's not a self-centered desire. It's a desire for Dharma, desire for others, for the overall society. I want the good of society. So this is a noble desire. But even if it's a noble desire, it should not be a disturbing desire. A binding desire is a disturbing desire. So it means to say whatsoever Shimai and the other Mahatmas have done should never be done with a means to complete themselves. It's just like, this is my nature, this is what I'm doing, I'm being moved to do, and for the sake of others, and I enjoy doing that. So, okay, no problem. I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing because it is absolutely in harmony, conformity with Dharma, good actions. But he'd say that some of these yonis, they have a good intellect, but they have desires. It does not specify, but it is a sort of disturbing desires that he considers not worth to work on it. Yeah, because in order to work on it, I need to do upasana or nididhyasana, and then gradually neutralize those thoughts. These vasana, they come from the causal body, but they manifest consciously in the subtle body, in the mind. So when you see it coming, and then you have to say, okay, I'm going to go with this desire because I want it so much, and it's okay. Or you can just say, okay, no, this desire appears again and again, but it's not good for my mind, it's not good for my physical health, and then I have to somehow minimize or neutralize certain desires. So there are some sage that say, so I'm not my vasanas, I'm not my desires, and who cares about purifying my mind? This reminds me of James Swartz, because sometimes Ramji would say that, who cares about my vasanas? I don't care to purify my mind. I have other things to do. When somebody would suggest that he could use some purification here and there. So everything can be said, you understand? But the desires should never be a disturbing desire, because it means it's binding. If it's binding, there is some ignorance still operating in the causal body, manifested in the mind. And then one says, but I don't care. I have jnana. Jnana is good enough. Therefore, their desires continue to manifest even after self-realization. As before, again, strange, as before, the same desires are coming. Neither are they tainted by such vasanas. So neither of those two kinds of yanis are tainted by such desires. They are said to be emancipated and diverse-minded. They are also reputed to be the best class of yanis. So maybe it's referring to yanis, with the desires, such as Shimayananda, and Dayananda, and even Ramji, they have a desire to do a certain work, and they are diverse-minded and so on. It's not clearly elaborate these concepts. What is the tainted? Tainted is they are not really impure, they are not made impure by such vasanas. Is that what it means? Yeah, no? The bottom line is that desire to be good should be moderate or genuine desire. Okay. For example, oh no, I need a house, I need a car, or this and this purpose, blah, blah, blah. And then, okay. And then those desires are genuine and needs to be moderate, meaning you say, I don't need a 500 square or a 2,000 square foot or 5,000 square foot home. It's small, a small little home is okay. And I don't need to buy an SUV, I buy a reliable car. So it needs to be a genuine desire, means say you need it. And moderate, and then it needs to be within the borders of Dharma. It must be something that does not hurt anybody else, and better be Dharmic and Sattvic desire, and Karma Yoga desire, a desire in a way that is going to benefit the others in the first place, and myself on a secondary level. So desire does not disappear, but needs to be conformed to one's wisdom, definitely. Otherwise, it's a disturbing desire and karma creating desire that's going to hit the field and then and produce some sort of conflicts, because you are not really in total harmony with Dharma. Brahma, he whose mind clings to the ignorance of the necessity of work, cannot hope for realization, even if Shiva offers to instruct him. So what work? Yeah, the inner work. The people who cling to the ignorance and say, no, I have no interest. I'm a materialist. And scriptures and spirituality, none of that has any meaning to me. So I have other things to do. I don't need this spiritual work. And therefore, there is no hope for spiritual growth and realization, even if Shiva offers to instruct him. Of course, this is right on the point. So you can never help somebody unless somebody is searched for this knowledge. If somebody really wants self-knowledge, not even Shiva can change one's mind. So everything has its place and time. Also, the person who has the fault of marked indifference to or misunderstanding of the teachings. Now, this is the person who wants to work alone without the help of a teacher. No, it may have those faults. I'm indifferent to the scriptures. I'm working things myself, and I'm going to come out with my own understanding. And then maybe I will have my own teachings. And then there will be a lot of misunderstandings in regards to the teachings. On the other hand, a man only slightly affected by these two vasanas and much more so by desires or ambitions will be repeated hearing of the whole truth, discussion of the same, and contemplation on it surely reach the goal, though only with considerable difficulty and after long lapse of time. Such a sage's activities will be small because he is entirely engrossed in his efforts for realization. So, he talks about the one who does not have any trust in the scripture. Shiva cannot help. And then the other person who has the fault of misunderstanding the teachings. The mind is not clear about the meaning of the teachings. Also has a hard time, I think. Similarly, also the person who has the fault of indifference or mistrust on the teachings. And then this is in the same category. So on the other hand, a man only slightly affected by these two vasanas and much more so by desires or ambitions will be repeated, by repeated hearing of the scriptures and plus the discussions of the same and contemplation surely reach the goal, though only with considerable difficulty and after a long lapse of time. So let's talk about most of us. Most of us have to work hard. And then it says such a person, the activities of certain person needs to be small, reduced, because the person is engrossed in his or her efforts to purify the body-mind. Understand? So that's what we say. If you're serious about self-realization, you need to simplify your life, to make room to do for all this spiritual effort for self-realization. Starts and then Upasana and remembering the teachings or Kamyo, everything, And then such a person cannot do much things because the person needs to dedicate most of the time in his efforts for self-inquiry and self-knowledge. That makes sense, huh? That makes sense. the activities of such a person will be confined to the indispensable necessities of life. So this is more or less how it happened to me. I had a profession, I had a career, I lived on almost no money for most of my adult life, because somehow I wanted something on these lines here. I want to grow spiritually. Materialism did not attract me when I walked away from everything. And then what are you gonna do? You have to live within your means. Huh? You have to live very simply. Yeah, no money, no honey. Okay, so no honey. And then a sage of this class has, by his long practice, a rigorous discipline, controlled his mind. Oof, mamma mia. So well that predispositions are now eradicated and the mind is as if dead. He belongs to the middle class in the scheme of classification of sages and said to be a sage without mind. I don't know this business about no mind, without mind, but the mind is purified, and such a sage, it works so hard that somehow minimize or eradicate most of the mental disturbance, and the mind is in a state of satisfaction, of peace. It's a peaceful mind. It's not a dead mind, but it's said to be as if dead because it's not moved by binding vasanas, binding desires for things. Even the desire for self-knowledge was gone. Now the mind is there, but it's not moved by these worldly predispositions anymore. So he or she belongs to the middle class of yanis, and is said to be a sage with a resolved mind, let's say, a resolved mind, a mind well resolved by self-knowledge. So the last class of the list, and the least among the sages, are those whose practice and discipline are not perfect enough to destroy the desires, the mental predispositions. The mental predispositions are still there. Mental impurities are still there. Their minds are still very active, and the sages are said to be associated with their minds. They are barely yanis, and definitely not Jivamuktas, not liberated, as are the other two classes. So now this is the yani of the lowest class here, who has got the yana, which is the same. But the mind is still impure, meaning to say there are a lot of mental predispositions which is somehow disturbing the peace, which is the fruits of self-knowledge, is to have a peaceful mind. So by every effort, all the effort or the incomplete effort and practice did not bring about this mental condition, did not destroy these vasanas. The minds are still subject to these thoughts, desiring thoughts, vasanas, and the minds are still very active. These sages are said to be, these are yanis, but very much associated with their minds, with the desiring minds, I would say. So they are yanis, barely, it's said here. They know who they are, but somehow they are not enjoying the fruits of self-knowledge, because the mental predispositions are the obstacle for one to enjoy the fruits of jnana. They are definitely not jivamuktas. They appear to share the pleasures and pains of life like any other man. and will continue to do so until the end of their lives. They will be emancipated only after leaving the body. Again, this is something that Papaji used to tell us. Papaji most probably studied this book big time, because here and there I remember that a lot of the quotes and pointers of Papaji were coming from this book. He was a fan of Nisargadatta Maharaj as well, and of course his guru, which was Ramana. And Ramana was fan of this book, Tripura. You know? And Papaji used to say, don't worry, you keep doing satsang, go back to home. You understood already that you were pre-limitless consciousness and not the body, not the mind. If you don't get it now, if you don't enjoy this self-realization now, you're going to get self-realization and emancipation when you die. And we used to think like, uh-oh, but, I want to enjoy it before I die. We used to, and sometimes he would say, but why not to do it now? Why to wait for the last second of your life? Why not to do it now? He used to play with us without much or any elaboration, because he was a Shakti Pati Guru, as we heard.
And also a human life is so rare. The opportunity is so precious. I mean, how could you not put everything into it?
Yeah.
Just all this after Krema Mukti and after death Mukti, it's just unattractive. Just don't care about it.
Yeah, the idea of Vidyamukta is the idea of being emancipated after death. But Vidyamukta is not an entity, it's just a status of someone who dies emancipated. But the experiencing entity wants to enjoy this freedom, while it still is an entity, an individual entity. Now, once you dissolve yourself and merge into the ocean, so there is no question of having a good experience as a wave. No? So if you live the entire life saying, I'm a wave and I have to protect and do this and do that, and then in the last moment, oh my God, I'm water, moreover. So you miss the opportunity to understand that you were water and you were free from the ocean and the wave while living as a Jivatma. Verse 95, Prarabdha, past karma, is totally powerless with the middle class, who have destroyed their minds by continued practice. So the middle class, the guy who did a lot of work to come to self-recognition, and then the mind is pacified by the means of jnana, and a lot of work, and Prarabdha is said to be powerless. So the mind is the soil on which the seed, namely Prarabdha, sprouts into pleasure and pain of life. So what is Prarabdha? Prarabdha is Punya Papa manifesting, vasanas manifest as Punya Papa. So the mind is the soil on which the seeds of Punya Papa sprouts, and we say, this is my karma, my Prarabdha. But if the yoni has somehow developed a sense of equanimity in regards to pleasure and pain, Punya and Papa, so Prarabdha is not a big deal anymore. So the Prarabdha becomes powerless, just like a roasted seed, which still appears as a seed, but does not has the power to sprout. So likewise, these vasanas, they are destroyed in due time. with continued practice. And then Parabhada manifests, but it does not sprout. There is no sense of this is my karma, this is my punya, and it's mine, give it to me here. Oh, this is my papa, oh, shoot, I did not want papa anymore in my life, No, these are all seeds. They were roasted in the fire of self-knowledge, and now they are powerless parabhadas. But if the mind is still is barren, the seed loses its sprouting power by long storage and becomes useless. So the sprouting is pleasures and pains. But if the soil, the mind is barren, mean to say it's not subject to the desires and aversions anymore. And then when those things come, you receive those things as just parabhada, but which does not concern me or my mind, because my mind does not own any of these anymore, because desires and aversions were neutralized in the fire of self-knowledge. There are men in the world who can carefully attend to different functions at the same time, and are famous and extraordinarily skilled. Again, some people tend to work as they are walking and conversing, while a teacher has an eye upon each student in the classroom and exercise control all of them. This brings me a picture of Swami Shimaya. I have never seen a Yanni. I haven't met him or many, but seen from their stories, more active. And he was said to do 18 hours of work a day and doing many things at the same time, and very skillfully. And keep an eye on everything, controlling everything in the sense that everything should be done to the best possible way. And he had control upon his students as well. And exercise control over all the students, or you yourself knew Kartavi Arjuna, who wielded different weapons in his 1,000 hands and fought with you using all of them skillfully and simultaneously. So it says that this guy fought Parashurama, and he was able to do many things at the same time, like using different weapons with different hands. This is all symbolic, of course. In all these cases, a single mind assumes different shapes to suit the different functions at the same time. Similarly, the mind of the best among Yanis is only the self, and yet manifests as all without suffering any change in its eternal blissful nature as the self. So this perfect Yanis, this superior Yanis, are said to be many-minded. I have never seen these concepts in other Vedantic scriptures, except for this one. Kartavirya Arjuna was the chief of the Himalayas, who were the sworn enemies of Parashurama. He was himself a devotee of Dattatreya and had received the most wonderful boon from his master, namely that his name should be transmitted to prosperity, as that of an ideal king unparalleled in legend and history. His reign was indeed remarkable, and his prowess. I forgot the meaning of this word. Prowess.
Prowess just means
power.
yeah.
And his powers was unequaled, much less excelled. Still, as destiny would have it, he was challenged by Parasurama, killed in the battle. So we will need to go to the beginning to remember those stories when Parasurama had to fight some people because he was really, really upset that some gangs killed his father. And so it seems he killed as well this guy who had an incredible mind. He was an example of many mind people, but Parasurama was greater and killed him in battle. The Parabada of Yanis is still active and sprouts in the middle, in the mind, but only to be burned up by the stead flame of Yana. This is very beautiful. So Parabada is manifesting pleasures and pains, punya papa. It sprouts, it's experienced, but it's burned by the stead flame of Yana. This is not my punya papa. This always belongs to Ishwara. Or furthermore, this is just a play of Maya. It's not real. I am the consciousness in which punya papa, parabada, or what more, apparently exists. Pleasure or pain is due to the dwelling of the mind on occurrences. Oh, but if these are scorched at their souls, how can there be pleasures and pain in the mind of the yani? So therefore, the parabada manifests as favorable and unfavorable situations, circumstance, experience. But the mind is never dwelling on this occurrence or circumstance. You see, the Ani has a lot of expectation, preoccupations, and it's all the time dwelling, what next, is it going to be my way? The mind of the end doesn't work that way. So the pleasure and pain is going to happen to someone who is really reinforcing the saying, I want what I want and I don't want what I don't want. Okay, because this gives me pleasure and that gives me pain. And then there is expectation, anxiety, and the mind keeps staying preoccupied. And so I want to control my experience and I want good circumstance. But if this is already neutralized in their souls, these tendencies burned in the flame of Yana, the Yani does not feed into this Parabada. The Parabada happens, but say, okay, Parabada, you came a little bit too late. If you would have come when I was younger, maybe I would be taking it as my Parabada. On the other hand, the yanis of the highest order, however, are seen to be active because they voluntarily bring out the vasanas. This is another. There are many concepts put in a very well structured way about the three kinds of ignorance and the three kinds of yanis. And here it says that yanis of the highest order, they keep active because they want to bring out all the vasanas. What for? They want to do it from the depths of the mind and allow them to run out and burn. Their action is similar to that of a father sporting with his child, moving its dolls, laughing at the imagined victory of one doll over another, and appearing to grieve over the injury to another, and so on. So the many-minded sage have pleasure have pleasure or pain from work. So it doesn't, because it's a play. Yeah? So this is the sage of the highest order. But, you know, he's active because he's active. Shimayananda was active because it was his nature, his apparent nature. Yeah? And then he acts because he wants to burn all one's vasanas. Well, so Tripura says so. Dattatreya is saying so. The vasas not inimical to self-realization are not weeded out by the best class of yanis because they cannot seek new ones to crowd the old out. So again, this concept that we need to replace bad vasanas with good vasanas, or with vasanas with better vasanas. So the vasanas not inimical to realization. So, but the best class of yanis, they are already self-realized firmly and fully. No? So if you're not a yani, vasanas are going to be operating. So what I want to say is that we are moved by vasanas. Every one of us have vasanas. No? And we need, yes, we do need to develop good vasanas. Human beings, they are moved, they are governed by ignorant, self-ignorant based vasanas, dharma ignorance-based vasanas. We need to replace vasanas, or unless we want to destroy the mind like the rishis or the yogis in deep nirvikalpa samadhi. But if you are living your life, you are just moved by vasanas. Huh? There are vasanas that are going to be an obstruction to self-realization, but there are vasanas that are going to enhance or help in the process of self-realization. So, of course, there are vasanas that are not inimical to self-realization. We need good vasanas. Now we say the expression, cultivate, maintain spiritual vasanas, Vedantic vasanas, contemplating vasanas, good vasanas. So, and then self-realization is a vasana. No, it's not a vasana. But you need a self-inquiring vasana to come to self-realization. When you realize the self, you know that you are consciousness, which is not bound by vasanas. Vasanas belongs to the mind, and you need the mind to operate by good vasanas until you understand that even the good vasanas have nothing to do with you. Therefore, we don't need to weed out all the vasanas. And if you have wonderful vasanas, how are you going to replace the wonderful vasanas? Oh, I have so many vasanas now. Okay, remember that good vasanas should not be binding, should be moderate, should, although it may become an obsession. But once you get self-knowledge, so who cares about my good vasanas? And why I'm going to try to replace them with even better vasanas? Meaning to say, we are moved out by vasanas. And a lot of people make this confusion, saying then the whole game of life is to develop good vasanas. And then you live your life from those vasanas. From scriptures-based vasanas, revealed scriptures-based vasanas. That's the purpose. No, the purpose is self-recognition, self-knowledge. But in the beginning, we need to cultivate, develop, and maintain good vasanas, spiritual vasanas, because it's that mind moved by those knowledge-based vasanas that are the proper soil on which self-recognition, self-knowledge takes place. So the yani, is not concerned about replacing its vasanas. This could be appointed to say, no, I want to find 100% purification. No, there is no need. You need a certain degree of purification to assimilate self-knowledge. So you don't need to, no, I have to get on, remove all these old habits, all these vasanas. No, therefore, the old vasanas continue until they are exhausted, and thus you find among them some highly irritable people sometimes, some lustful and others pious and dutiful, and so on. So this is referring to the other class of yani that is said to be still under the pressure of desires, of vasanas, or tendencies, but he does not care. But if you find someone who is highly irritable, full of lust, and the sense of duty, and so on, it's difficult to classify such a yani, as a freely liberated yani. Now, the lowest order of yanis, still under the influence of the minds, know that there is no truth in the world of objects. Their samadhi is not different from that of the rest. Now it comes back to say, even the lowest, the one that before that the Treya said is not even worth being called a yani, and definitely not a jiva mukta. The lowest order yanis is still under the influence of the desiring mind. Know that there is no truth in the objects of desires. Therefore, their samadhi is not different from the rest. So what is samadhi? Samadhi is a state of mind. So if you know that there is nothing in the objective universe of objects of desire, and then your mind is nicely pacified, no? And then one is experience a sort of sahaja samadhi, nature of samadhi, which is not different from the rest. You see, there is a lot of I don't want to say confusion, but these verses are not clearly unfolded and explained, and it's not really much relevant. What's relevant to us is understand that yes, yana is one and the same, but the fruits of yana is going to depend on our vasana load, purification or impurification, and then the author here went very profoundly, deeply, and meticulously in certain slight difference. Here he says, but what is samadhi? The samadhi is not different from the other. What is samadhi? Samadhi is being aware of the self. Beautiful. So all of the three know that I am the self, and consciousness is my nature, and it gives me life. It provides me with existence, with consciousness, and I am consciousness. All the three know what is samadhi. Samadhi is a mind that does not forget, or at least not as often, this fact. Samadhi is naturally holding the knowledge that I am the self. I am aware of my nature as the self and nothing else. That's to say, it should not be confounded with nirvikalpa. That's good. That should not be confounded with nirvikalpa. So we are talking about sahaja samadhi, which is a mind which is stable. It was specified by the understanding of one's true nature identity. Okay, so we are going to come back. It's coming Monday from verse 113. Okay, anything from you?
I'll be at Trout Lake but I don't see why I couldn't meet with you also. It's just an hour earlier and before Ramji starts, so
Okay, the time is gonna be good?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Anyhow, if you can't, there will be Mark. You're not going to Trout Lake, huh, Mark? And there will be Sylvia. Okie dokie. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Mudachate Purna Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste. We meet
Thanks.
again soon. Are you going to drive to Trout Lake, young lady, or are you going to fly?
I'm going to fly because it's a 2.5 day drive and a week there and 2.5 days back and
Yeah.
cats and plants and all that stuff you have to take care of. So
Yeah, it is tiring. Good. Okay, doc. Namaste. Thank you. We meet again soon. Ishwara willing. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.